super excited for today's conversation with my friend Tilly. Tilly, thank you so much for joining the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Okay, so first things first, let's get started with some rapid fire questions. What is something that you're grateful for right now?
I am grateful for my boyfriend.
I love it. What is a guilty pleasure of yours?
Pop music like Charlie XCX.
Fun. What about a random fact that most people would not know about you?
I love heavy metal.
Okay. If you weren't doing what you do now, which I know is like your sole purpose and you absolutely love your business, but if you like in an alternate universe, what kind of job or career would you have, or something that you're like, oh, that's always been cool, whether or not you are qualified for it?
Oh yeah. Well, no, I actually do plan to do that thing. I want to open a kava and kratom bar.
A what?
A kava and kratom bar.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
What did you want to be when you were little?
A doctor.
Okay. And do you have any weird talents or special skills?
None I can think of. I can
Okay.
play piano really well.
Ooh, nice. I grew up playing the piano. I miss it. When's the last time that you cried?
Maybe this morning. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm like same. I'm like, or was that today? I'm like,
Yeah.
last time that you had like a really, really good laugh.
Probably over Thanksgiving break when my kids weren't here. Yeah.
Okay. What's your favorite meal?
It's so boring. Salad.
That's okay.
Salad.
Okay.
And chips and salsa. Chips and salsa. Live off of both of those.
I love it. Where's the next place that you want to travel to?
Iceland.
Ooh, nice. All right, those are just little rapid fire, and now let's get into the juicy stuff. So first things first, you are the multi-orgasmic woman, right? That is your brand. You're right. What does that mean? What does it mean to be multi-orgasmic? Obviously, having multiple orgasms are a very basic one, but why that, and what does that mean to you?
Well, being a multi-orgasmic woman is, yeah, more than just being able to have the orgasms. It's being able to tap
Yeah.
into pleasure at will and having the capacity to hold more pleasure than what you were conditioned to be able to experience, to know your full range of capacity of pleasure.
And what do you feel like with your clients? What, and just, I guess, women in general, though this might be so many different things, what do you feel like is usually blocking women from pleasure the most?
Their nervous systems and their disempowering narratives, kind of both opposite ends of the spectrum of things. The unconscious
Yeah.
mind and their conscious thoughts.
And what are the narratives that you hear most often
Pleasure
that are
isn't
getting in
for
the way?
me. It's only for men. It's something I can only have when everything else is taken care of. Yeah, mostly those. It's
Yeah.
frivolous. Pleasure is
Yeah.
for sluts and no, like sex workers, but not me.
That's that's so wild to me because obviously you and I do different things, but there's some overlap in all of this. And I just it still kind of blows my mind that women feel that way. But that is a very normal, unfortunately, like, or maybe not normal, but common thing
Yeah,
for women to experience.
I have a quiz that thousands of women have filled out, and it asks, "What did you learn about pleasure growing up?" And the most common answer is nothing. There's like 6 or 7 different options, and that one is like the most common one.
Yeah. Though if I'm thinking about that too, I don't know that I would have a really clear idea of what I learned about pleasure
Mhm.
growing up, right?
Yeah.
Better to feel good than not. And like, but it was more in the, which is not going to be a surprise to you or the audience, more in the like, oh, like achieving your goals like makes you feel good, like that kind of thing.
Right.
And like more like, oh, pain is a like physical pain, that's a bad thing in certain situations. Yeah,
Okay.
interesting. So you talk a lot about in your podcast, social media, that sort of stuff, about the Jade Egg Practice.
Mhm.
And I want to learn more about this, like what it entails. I know you've talked about it, how powerful it is for breaking scarcity, for increasing pleasure, sex drive, like so many things. So can we talk about this a little bit more? Because it's, as I listen to some of your episodes, I'm like, I think I need to get one for myself, and I need to do this because why not? Why wouldn't I?
Well, after doing the Jade Egg for over a decade now, like it's remarkable the times that I use it and the times that I don't, how much of a difference and sensation and ease of experiencing pleasure and orgasm when I'm using it versus when I'm not. And then when I use it for, after not using it for a month or two or three or four, I'm like, why did I ever stop doing this? This was dumb. I'm
Yeah.
just like, if this thing is available to you to where you are so sensitized and it makes pleasure so much easier to get to and orgasm so much easier, then why don't we just all do it all the time? Well, I
Yeah.
mean, life, right? Like, yeah, obviously things come in the way, but yeah, basically the Jade Egg is just the most powerful tool that is basically free. I mean, it costs like $80 or something to get, and it has the most powerful impact on helping you to create like a somatic connection with your body again if you feel really numb or disconnected from your body,
Hmm.
to help wake up more sensation that has gone dormant due to many, many things. So that's why I
Yeah.
use it with my women, because that's really what they're coming to me for, is like a pleasure.
Yeah. So can you break it down like super basic, like what it, because if somebody could be listening to us right now and be like, what are they even saying and what does this mean? And still have no idea. So
Yeah.
it's a egg-shaped jade stone, right? And I'll let you give us the
Yeah.
basics.
Yeah, for sure. It's about that's way less than the size of your palm, so it's not large at all. Less than the width of any other sex toy you might use. But yeah, it's just an egg-shaped stone that you use internally in your vaginal canal, and you do different squeezes and releases and breathwork practices with it. It's almost like doing a yin yoga class. It looks like you're not doing a lot, but you're just doing different squeezes and releases to activate different reflexology points in your vaginal canal that more sensation in it. And if you're just someone who's like terrified of self-pleasure, or you have a lot of shame or guilt around it or fear around it, it's just a way to help break the ice and actually learn how to self-pleasure. So maybe if you've never had an orgasm before, or it's just really difficult, like, what's the point? It becomes easier for you to do. So
So
that's
cool. So cool. So I'd also love to talk about the connection between sex and money, right? Or between lack of pleasure and scarcity, and just how sex and abundance, sex and money, how these things are so intertwined. Can you give us kind of the basics of why that is?
Yeah, for sure. Well, after coaching women around these blocks and hangups, I don't want to call them like huge issues, but sometimes they're just like things that we want to move beyond and we want to break a block or a glass ceiling that maybe we haven't gotten to yet. The same things that get us beyond what we thought was possible, whether it's in terms of pleasure or money, it's the same modalities you use to break through either one. And what it really comes down to is, do you have the capacity to experience the abundance that you say you want? And do you have the capacity within your body to experience the pleasure that you say you want? And at the end of the
Mm,
day, the answer is no, because you don't have it. And if you actually did feel safe to have the thing and had greater capacity for it, you would be able to create that and manifest it effortlessly. So, yeah, I mean, as far as the connection is concerned, it's just the fact that the same modalities that help you heal your relationship with money are the same that help you heal your relationship with pleasure and sex.
I love it. What are some of the best ways to heal both of those things from your perspective?
Well, there are many things that might work for some people. I don't know. I know my own experience and what I have found has worked for my clients is that when we really look at the root of our experience as humans, and the mentors that I've had and teachers that I've had along over the years, is that the autonomic nervous system is the thing that determines our experience in life. And if we're not looking at and working at our nervous system to rewire it and signal safety to it, it doesn't matter how much mindset work, how many affirmations you tell yourself throughout the day, no matter how much I'm a queen, pleasure is my birthright. Like, you can say those things all day until you're blue in the face, but you're not going to experience any change around that experience of pleasure unless you do that deep nervous system rewiring to show it that it's actually safe to experience pleasure
Mm-hmm.
incredible levels. With that said, nervous system and somatic work is where it's at
Yeah.
for sexuality
What
work.
are, yes, absolutely. I mean, I 1000% agree with you on that. What if you're working with somebody or somebody listening, right, who wants to just start? Because I know it takes not sometimes like somatic work is actually quite easy or simple, but if somebody listening wants to just do something like take a baby step to experience more pleasure or be open to experiencing more pleasure, more abundance in their life, what is like one practice or a couple practices that you would recommend for that?
Yeah, well, it kind of depends on where you're starting, right? Like, I have some women who are very shut down and they've experienced a lot of
Mm,
trauma, a lot of guilt and shame from religious conditioning, that sort of stuff. And I always like to tell them, okay, we're not going for the gold medal here. Okay, we're not going for having multiple orgasms to start. That you just want to think of the 1% more thing that you can do to bring pleasure into your experience. So let's say we take sexual pleasure as an example here. You want to experience more sexual pleasure, a practical thing that you can do to do that. Well, sometimes that can be overwhelming for our brain to be like, well, I don't know. I don't feel much, or I don't experience much down there. Or maybe you do, but you just want to take it up a notch. Well, what's something that you can do even right now in this moment to create 1% or maybe even 10% if you're really going for it, more pleasure in your experience right now? What are you doing? Are you driving? Maybe you're running, maybe you're working out. I don't know. But whatever you're doing right now, what could you do in this moment to make your experience even 1% more pleasurable? So I
mm-hmm.
always come back to that 1% principle because it is like the small things that we do over time that create a snowball effect in the long run and that actually are way more rooted and titrated when we take that 1% approach versus trying to go like all out and be like, okay, I'm going to figure out how to have a cervical orgasm. And you go like Google all of the techniques on how to do it. And you like make it this whole mission. Women who do that, I'm like, ooh, red flag, red flag, red flag.
Yeah, the all or nothing
Yes.
approach.
Yeah.
I like that though. How can you increase your experience of pleasure just like 1%, 5%? Just a little bit.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then you start to build a greater capacity for it over time. But that's why I'm saying, like, if you try and make it a gung ho mission to experience more pleasure, it often becomes overwhelming for your system and then it backfires.
Mm-hmm. What made you decide to go down this path and help women with their sexuality, sensuality, orgasm, pleasure, all of that?
I was actually working in a birth center. I was a doula and a midwife apprentice. I had already had two kids at the time, and my youngest one was a baby. And I started noticing that women would just come to me and their 6 week checkups, and they would laugh when you would tell them that they're cleared to have sex. Everything's normal down there, your stitches are healed or whatever. And I was like, what? Why are they laughing? I don't know. I didn't have this experience of not wanting sex
Mm.
after having kids or lacking sexual desire. I never had the problems that I actually help women with, which is kind of funny. But I did see that it was a huge thing from not only the clients that we had in the birth center, but my own friends that they would share their experience of sex and like, that's not been my experience. Is this really a thing?
Mm.
Is this really something women need help with? And the honest to God answer is absolutely yes. And I had already gone through my own sexual journey and awakening when I started to notice these things. I was 27 and my partner had mentioned that I could only orgasm in one way. And it made me feel less than. And I
Your
started,
partner said that to you.
yeah, my husband actually. Yeah.
Yeah. How interesting. Okay, keep going.
Yeah. Well, he just brought it up in conversation. I was like,
Yeah.
you're right. Why is it only one way that I can have an orgasm?
Like one way, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to ask more questions. One position. Okay.
Yeah, I had to be on top.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was like, that does feel kind of limiting. I'm only 27 and I can't imagine going like another 60 years of my life and this really being all there is to sex. Like, what's the point?
Hmm.
Like, why does everybody make it such a big deal? And it kind of sent me on a rabbit hole down the path of reading all sorts of books, and then eventually being served a Facebook ad by my first teacher, Layla Martin, back in 2015 when she first came online. So yeah, I had my own journey of recognizing that a lot of my own hangups around pleasure and sex were because of the religious conditioning that I experienced when I was a kid. And yeah, unwinding that with the Jade Egg Practice, which was a miracle for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew women had problems with lack of desire and experiencing pleasure in the bedroom. It just wasn't quite the same as my own story. And eventually, Layla mentioned that she was going to open up a coaching certification training, and I was like, that's what I'm here to do with my life. So
I love
yeah,
it.
I just kind of knew.
So, yeah, so you mentioned your religious conditioning. I know you've talked about that on some episodes as well. What were the really like set beliefs that you had from that you needed to reprogram or shift?
Yeah. Well, I think the one that was the hardest for me was my relationship with my body, not necessarily my pleasure, because there was a very defining moment that I remember coming out of the bathroom naked. Actually, I had a towel around me, so I wasn't necessarily naked. I just didn't get dressed when I was 6 years old. And my parents fussed at me for coming out of the bathroom with a towel around me and not getting dressed before I left the bathroom to go into my room. And I remember
Interesting.
that being a very imprinting moment for me, that I made up some story in my head to justify that behavior from my parents, that something is inherently wrong with my body. And
Mm.
when I had two babies, obviously you gain weight, you lose weight. I lost the weight quickly, thankfully, but also that meant that my boobs became really saggy, and I didn't have a tight tummy like I used to anymore. And I just felt extremely uncomfortable in my body, even though I was what most people would consider like stereotypically pretty, like wasn't overweight or anything. I just had loose skin. So yeah, that conditioning around the body was really what it was for me that led me down to a rabbit hole. That and the I can only orgasm in one way.
Mm.
It's not necessarily what I see with most people. I think we're looking at more of the guilt and the shame for their desires, and having desire in the first place is more of the thing than your relationship with your body.
Yeah. So I would imagine then you work with a lot of people who may have similar religious programming and stuff like that.
Yeah, some people do. There's definitely a lot of women that I've helped who come from backgrounds like Mormonism, Jehovah's Witness, extreme strict Catholic. I've had people from all different religions, some of them still practicing, some of them not. Like the great thing is like the only what do you call it? Not prerequisite, contraindication. The only contraindication for this work is like if you have a serious moral issue with self-pleasure, I can't help you, right?
Yeah.
So that's like my only
Gosh.
thing. And I have had one client that I had to refund her money because she came into the program and was like, I can't do this. And I'm like, okay, well, then I'm not the right teacher for you, because you
Hmm.
have to be able to self-pleasure to discover what it is you even want, like in the first place?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Can I ask what does your like faith, because we talked about this on your show, so I'm curious for you as well, like what is your kind of faith journey looked like, and like connection with God, consciousness and all of that, especially in light of this kind of work? Because I
Yeah.
know people can think of it as like conflicting in a sense, or yeah.
Yeah. Well, I left the Southern Baptist Church when I was 15,
Hmm.
and there were just so many questions that they gave me the most ridiculous answers to. Like, I was just appalled by the lack of depth of many of the line of questioning that I had and their response to it. It was just ridiculous. And I knew from an early age that what I was being taught, I was very much raised in a church. Like we went to church 3 times a week, went to church. Okay. It was like the only community that we had. And I also knew from a very young age that that was not me, that there was something off, that I don't know what it was. I couldn't name it. I still can't really name it at the time, but it wasn't in alignment with what I could intuit that God was. So I left, I never went back. And of course, there went to be a long line of, the new age stuff and
Mm-hmm.
exploring all of that for a long time. When I went through the sex, love, and relationship coaching training, the teacher I had was very much on into the new age type things, and I was heavily influenced by that as well. After that program ended and when 2020 started, I had a huge awakening around like more political things going on.
Mm-hmm.
I think less around faith than it was politically, but I knew that I couldn't entertain conversations with some people that were more on the political spectrum of like, oh no, everything is terrible. We're all gonna die during the COVID era. Because I knew from like the moment it started, something was off here too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was interesting because I met my boyfriend in June of 2020 and we went to the sex toy store like a month after we started dating. And they were telling me like that I needed to put all of this hand sanitizer on my hands. And these same people that were telling and screaming my body, my choice, were telling me I needed a vaccine that I was never going to take. It didn't add up. Like none of it added up. So I had to start unwinding all of that. And
Mm.
it has really led me to become much more conservative. But as far as religious stuff goes, I don't fit into a box with it. I don't have any desire to go to church. I definitely understand the teachings of Christ and I have a lot of Christian clients, but I don't consider myself Christian either. I don't really know. I think that journey is
Yeah.
like still a work in progress as far as like reclaiming what do I actually believe in and does it actually fit into any. I don't see myself really proclaiming a particular faith, but who knows? I don't know.
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing all of that. I like learning about it. And I do want to talk about that transition which you mentioned a bit, from like you might say like more leftist like feminist
Mhm.
woman to, as you call it, right? Like Maha MAGA mom,
Yeah.
and that shift. So before, right, like were you like outspoken at all ever, like politically or like socially, before your, awakening in 2020?
I wouldn't say so, like I was outspoken about it because I never really took a stand. I just adopted more of a belief system from culture and
Mm-hmm.
the teachers that I had at the time that I never really thought to question until
Yeah.
COVID happened. And then I questioned it. I was like, oh no, we're not doing this.
And you ended up being canceled. So let's talk about that a bit, because
Oh yeah.
this is something that, I think when people listen to my episode on your show, right, I talked about some of my concerns with like, talking more publicly about sex, kink, BDSM, those sorts of things, which like some of my concerns, like you literally lived through because you spoke out about things. So I'd love for you to share that story
Okay.
and that
I
experience.
love this because I don't think I've gotten to talk about it publicly yet.
Oh.
I have just recently fully come out that yes, I'm a conservative and on my podcast, which has been going on for 8 years, by the way. So if you listen to my early episodes, you will definitely that like I'm not the same person, right? But when I started going through this political awakening, the women in my field who had done sex, love, and relationship coaching training with me and the years like she does a training every year and there's like several hundred people who do this so each year, and we had this alumni group and a lot of them were friends with me, we connected and everything, and I definitely started to talk about the polarity stuff and the transgender stuff online. I had read the book The End of Gender by Dr. Deborah So, It's actually sitting right
Hmm.
there, so I can see it as we're looking at it. But it was a very enlightening book to read about how so much of the research that's done on sexuality is bought and paid for. And this woman who's a doctor in sexuality was literally watching how the universities were skewing a lot of the research that was coming out in support of the transgender agenda. And I started to talk about it online, and I'm like, is this really good for us? Like, no. In order to have a healthy, long lasting, passionate relationship, we must have polarized relationships. This
Hmm.
homogenous, homogenizing gender is like the most ridiculous agenda I've ever heard of. And it's not going to do anything good for, our relationships by any means. And my God, was I attacked. Hundreds, maybe even thousands of comments on one post that I made, and they went crazy. Do you know how like
Hmm.
they had the what is it? Uh
The like woke mob mind hive thing that
yes, the
happens is
hive mind.
really strange.
Yes, it's like the
Reddit, is
Reddit.
that what you're thinking about?
Yes, the Reddit
Yeah.
mentality. You know how people on Reddit, like, when one thing gets picked up, everybody hops on it.
Yeah.
It's like cryptos or something, a cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
Like when one person hops on it, everybody does, and they definitely did that. And I ended up having to just delete the entire social media. It's on Facebook, and I deleted my whole profile there because it
Wow.
was just so ridiculous. And it really
Yeah.
shut me down for years. I didn't want anything to do with social media. And then what I see now, though, is that there are really only two types of sex coaches that are out there speaking about it. There's the Christian ones who are like outwardly Christian, which is great. And then there are the total sex positive, like everything is great and as long as there's consent and nothing else matters. Then there was that bunch, which wasn't me either. So I wasn't like one of
Hmm.
the Christian sex podcasts or coaches out there, and I wasn't one of these more leftist minded, everything goes as long as there's consent thing either. And there's only one other sex coach that wasn't either of those that I even knew about at the time. And I'm like, you know what? I don't really fit into the normal sex coach box, and I'm just going to own it. So this year I was like, you know what? I'm going to own that. And I just started talking about it because it feels really good to just own it and be out about it and not like hide behind my true beliefs and stuff. I have a lesbian client who actually was like, I'm so proud of you because she's also conservative. She said it's actually harder to come out as a conservative sex coach than it is to come out as a lesbian. I was like,
Yeah.
thank you. Like, thank you for saying that. It really meant a lot because it was hard. It was very hard.
Yeah. And even still though, like it's kind of wild to me that like that belief then puts you in the conservative category. It's like
Yeah.
this isn't that
Right.
conservative of a belief,
Right. Yeah.
you guys, you know? And yeah, it's just so fascinating. And too, like the whole like wokeism thing, like is its own religion, right? Which encompasses that like accept everything. And if you don't, we are going to come after your throat because that's so tolerant, right? Like like it's just so
Yeah.
crazy that
Right.
it's become its own like the wokeism thing, the scientism, the transgenderism stuff, like all of that has become its own religion. Yeah. So you really this year, 2024, have like come out being more outspoken about this, like reemerged.
Yeah.
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 How has the reception been?
Absolutely nothing what I thought. No one seemed to care,
How so? Yeah.
which was a good thing, I guess, in a way. I definitely lost about maybe 100 followers on Instagram, which I expected way more, to be honest with you.
Yeah. That's not
And
bad.
the emails I got when I posted a podcast episode about it were only in support. So it wasn't nearly as terrible as I thought it was going to be. I lost maybe 10 email subscribers, which was like nothing. So, a lot of our worst fears are just in our own heads, and it really wasn't a big deal. And I also
Yeah.
think people already kind of knew that about me because I would dance around it, but I never fully claimed it too. So I think for a couple years, people kind of already knew that I was not one of those types of sex coaches. And if they wanted that, they should probably go somewhere else.
Amazing. What sort of somatic things did you do to help yourself break through that? Because I can imagine there was probably like some PTSD going on with like, oh, I'm gonna be seen again and now I'm gonna speak more unapologetically and really like own these truths. Like, what sort of things did you do to ease your nervous system back into that?
Yeah. Well, for the past 4 or 5 months now, I've had a very regular morning breathwork practice that I do. And that's been one of the most supportive things. I've never been someone who's like, I've got to go do my morning routine. I'm kind of more go with the flow or whatever, but I have been religiously like every single morning that was humanly possible in my spare bedroom doing a 15-minute breathwork practice and resetting my nervous system after,
Yeah.
which is just like a 3 to 5 minute movement of the neck and vagal nerve toning. And I think that signaling of safety to my own body has created more capacity to be seen and not really care what the result of being seen is, because
Yeah.
I feel safe within me. So if someone doesn't like it, oh well. So it's kind of like a badassery that that feeling of safety within my own system creates for anyone, really, because it makes you care less about what other people think, and that's pretty badass.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Okay, so when all this stuff was going on with the cancellation and all that, which I just think it's so stupid. That the whole like social media mob stuff. Did you look at Reddit stuff about yourself?
No,
Oh,
I
good.
have not
Okay.
ever looked. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's probably something, but
Okay, yeah, because I'm like, because I've had a few times where like a piece of content has gone viral and it has polarized a lot of people, and like the first time it happened and something blew up a lot, like the comment, I was like scared to open my phone, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if I'm wanting, like I'm wanting to grow my audience. Like I want things to go viral. Of course. I'm like, and now I am not even going to open Instagram because I'm scared of comments from strangers. Like, what is this shit?
yeah.
Right. And then, like, that was a big lesson in nervous system management and detachment and everything. And then when it's happened since then, I could give a shit, right? Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I still like I would never I'm not going to look myself up on Reddit. So yeah, so I was like gosh, I hope like I can only imagine like going through something like that and seeing all the things being said. Like yeah, definitely like
Mhm.
looking at the comments is not the way to go. You just
No.
like the angry people, you just go, "Oh, how interesting. That's how you're spending your time." Moving on.
Right. For sure.
Yeah. One of your recent podcast episodes is about how conservatives and moderates enjoy better satisfaction in sex and relationships. Let's get into that. Why do you believe that? Because well, and before I'm going to say cuz I guess like I would consider myself a moderate, which is like I don't know, and I think I've probably become more conservative in the last few years just in light of like everything that's gone on socially and culturally, and because I feel like the left has like sprinted off of a cliff, right? And so the middle seems very much on the right only because the left side went like
Yeah.
real hard in the other direction.
Right.
And I don't know, as I guess a moderate slash somewhat conservative, I mean, I don't come I think I have a very fulfilling, So yeah, so tell me, why do you
Oh,
believe
I
that?
think so many of the reasons are pretty obvious if you've like not been hiding under a rock for the past 4 years, but they're sitting here swearing off sex, the one thing they want, in protest of Donald Trump. Like, come on, are you freaking serious? Yeah, let's just make sure you
That'll
never
show
get.
him, right? Yeah, like he's
Yeah.
really gonna care.
Right, yeah. But yeah, the reason that, I give the 5 reasons in the episode, but one of them that, oh, several, I mean, I'll mention them, but yeah, when you're more on this not crazy and jumping off the cliff around everything really socially going on, you know what a woman is. And I actually have a biology major, so I can speak to that. I know what a woman is. Like, we're not sitting here questioning everything simply because we have nothing to better do with our time. It's ridiculous, right? Like, we don't need to sit here and pick apart our entire gender likes and dislikes just because we have the luxury to. Like, my God, I literally had someone come on a call one time, a pleasure assessment call with me, and she was sitting here telling me how she's like, well, I feel like I haven't explored my gender enough. And I'm like, okay, well, have you ever been attracted to women? No. Have you ever wanted to have sex with women? No. Why do you feel like you need to explore that? And she couldn't give me a reason. And the reason that I knew was literally because of the social movement over the last
Whoa.
years that literally is making women question things about their sexuality that maybe they don't even need to be questioning, right?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. So,
Well,
you know, there's that piece.
yeah. Well, and too with that is like it's almost more limiting in a sense because you can be a masculine woman, right? Like whether you're straight or not, like you can be more of a tomboy and still be a woman. Like it's so interesting. Like I am very into like very harmonized in my masculine feminine energy, and now after like doing so much work on myself, very at home in my feminine energy as the default. And there are definitely times when I'm like, ooh, I'm more in my masculine energy, and where I almost like maybe not look like it, but like I can feel more of that masculine energy edge. And yet I'm never in any way questioning my gender because of that, right? And granted, I also don't have gender dysphoria, so there's that, right? But like you it's so interesting that if you are playing within your energy balance and how that looks, then so many people are like, well, then you must not, you need to, then you're not that gender, right? It's like, or no, maybe you're just like playing within the energy that you have that isn't going to be always fixed.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of people misuse the term gender, which Deborah So in that book, The End of Gender, does a great job defining. It kind of annoys me, but people use it interchangeably with sex. So sex is
Right.
like obviously what your organs are, and gender is like the polarity that you're identifying with or whatever. So, one of the things that with this woman in particular, she's sitting here questioning her gender identity because that's what the cultural narrative is basically telling her. She'll have more social credit if she does, right? And it's just like this ridiculous game. But several of the other things that are so important to look at here is people who aren't sitting here questioning just for questioning's sake. Like, I'm all about questioning your conditioning and questioning narratives that we got growing up. But if it's not even founded for any particular reason, like, why are we even doing that? Why are we wasting our time and energy with that? So another one is the context of your relationship containers. The new age and more spiritual people and people who are maybe more on the left are constantly trying to recreate and reinvent the wheel of what relationship structures and containers should be. And while I don't condemn or find anything wrong with other relationship scenarios and situations, again, it's like, do we really need to be questioning our monogamous relationship just because that's what this narrative is telling us we should be doing? And that maybe it's more spiritual and more higher than if we become polyamorous or whatever. It's ridiculous, right? So this is just more of like when you're not constantly questioning your gender and your relationship container just because you think you should be, you're gonna have a more solid relationship and feel more confident in yourself as a woman naturally. So
Mm-hmm.
those were two of the five that I talked about in that episode.
Yeah. Yeah, it was a great episode. So I definitely recommend people go listen to it. But and it all makes sense too, right? Like if that polarity is there and established, like polarity leads to like you need polarity for a healthy, fulfilling relationship and sex life. And so if you're like saying if you're basing saying polarity is something that's just like neutral and you just decide, yeah, it just messes it all up.
Absolutely. Yeah, not gonna work.
Yeah, what do you Okay, now I want to keep going a little more with all of this. Like, what do you think? And I've never really talked about these things on the show. I'm like, this, I don't know. I feel like my audience is very aligned with a lot of what we're talking about anyway. But what do you think is like behind so much of the trans agenda? And like, for me, it's something where like I very much believe that like if that's something you struggle with, or you believe that you were born in the wrong body, like I, for one, just with my beliefs, like I don't think God is putting us in the wrong body, right? For one. And if that's like your natural state and how you're supposed to be, why does it take lifelong pharmaceutical intervention for you to be your natural state? Why does it take many surgeries and stuff like that for you to be in your natural state like that? It just doesn't add up to me. And if somebody genuinely, like, yes, is struggling with gender dysphoria, and obviously there are like instances, right? There are things where you can be born with like conflicting stuff going on inside or even externally, right? Like it's not like it's always just like black and white from a biological level, of course. And I'm someone who's like, okay, so yes, this can be happening. Like I believe that transgenderism is a real thing that people are experiencing, and their experiences should be validated to a certain extent, of course, and they should absolutely have rights and stuff like that, right? But then it's like, it's never made sense to me that then the solution to
Chop off.
only have a, yeah, to change all your parts and stuff like that, or that the solution then is men competing in women's biological men competing in women's sports because they no longer identify as men, right? It's like, no, then why don't we have a open league, right? Or an open category, right? Like that's where it's like, why is there no, there has to be some sort of middle ground for this. Like the solution can't be, yeah, you say you're a woman, then you're a woman. So I would love to get into like why you feel like this is like what's behind all this. We can go down conspiracy theory, we can go to whatever direction we want to go in. Yeah.
Well, what's behind it is an agenda. And the agenda is this. Everyone in Hollywood, they're pretty much all not the sex that they appear to be, first of all. And the reason this is because a lot of them are Satanists. And a lot of these people who run Hollywood and who are the what we consider the elites of the world, and people who are basically the people of the World Economic Forum and all of these three-letter agencies that hold a lot of power, and they have an agenda for what they want to see happen. And they're also all Satanist, and they worship a transgender god. And it is part of a ritual to worship that god, to make people transgender. So if you've ever wondered why this has been pushed so hard, it is because it is a ritual for them to basically worship their god. And it is why there has been such a huge push for it. And people are also there now, there's this huge awakening of like, what the heck is going on? And people are starting to find this information out, and they're starting to recognize that, wow, this isn't normal. It's not natural. Deborah So talks about it in her book how transgender people are less than 1% of the population naturally, without the push, the conditioning to try and make them that way, or make them feel like they're more socially, I don't know, what was the word we were using during COVID? They had more social credit, I
I
guess,
don't know.
if they were like
Yeah.
not the norm. And the moms, like it's like a whole competition with moms with how accepting they could be of their kid if
Right.
the kid was like a weirdo, right? So the more things that you
Yeah, like
wrong with your kid, if you were
how special.
neurodivergent, yeah, if you were neurodivergent, if you were transgender and you were accepting of that, then you were seen as like the amazing mom, right? Who could just be so accepting.
Yeah, but it's like there's this like who can earn the most like I'm special, I'm different points, or I need special treatment sort of thing.
How many points can we get in the victim Olympics? Because it's
Yeah.
what people were doing. They're like, I'm a victim because I'm this. Oh, I'm a victim because I'm that. And it was just so hard to watch because it's like, what are you people doing? Do you want to be a victim forever? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and what you were saying with like, you know, transgenderism being a yes, it's a real thing, and it's something that affects a very, very small percentage of people, right? And so why that's become this huge, huge, huge in your face priority, it's worth thinking about and looking at more critically, right? And looking at like, okay, why might this be going on? And with what you were saying about Hollywood and stuff like that, like, yeah, Hollywood is super satanic for, like, coming from like knowing many people in the industry who have seen like what goes on behind closed doors and stuff like that. And I think too, we're seeing so much come to light lately regarding Hollywood, the music industry, and how there's this very disgusting, like evil, like network of people who are involved in really messed up, like sex stuff, right? Whether it's trafficking, abuse, like these like
Yeah,
blackmail ring, like,
and
yeah.
it pains me that no one talks about this. When The Sound of Freedom came out, there are more slaves now than there
Yeah.
have ever been in all of human history. And no one talks about it. And most of them are
Mm-hmm.
sex slaves and children. And the it's just it goes so unnoticed. No one talks about it because they don't want to talk about it. It's so sad. And there's just so much distortion because of these people. And yeah, it's a mess.
Yeah. I volunteered with some anti-human trafficking organizations when I was in college and like did a whole trip to Thailand and Cambodia to meet with some organizations over there, do some volunteering and all of that. And the fact that like since 2020, right? Like people I think started talking about that kind of stuff more publicly, but the fact that there are so many people who are saying that, acting as if that doesn't exist, and that in and of itself, sex trafficking and human trafficking is a conspiracy theory, is insane. Like even when it comes to like, didn't expect this show to be a political one, but even when it comes to like the border, right? And how dangerous and crazy and scary that is, and how people are like, so many
Oh,
people
it's
just have this
not.
idea that, oh, it's just people coming for better
Yes.
lives. And you're like, you are
Yeah,
so
exactly.
naive. You're
Yeah,
so naive.
there's a
Like
reason that border was open.
so
Yeah.
many of the
And
people, yeah,
it's so sad, and no one wants to look at it.
yeah,
No one wants to believe it. It's really just all cognitive dissonance. Like they can't handle the truth, honestly. And so they just turn a blind eye to what's actually going on. But once you
mm-hmm,
see it, you can't unsee it. And that's why there's people like you and I and others who are just, we're
right.
going to talk about it because more people need to see what's actually going on if we ever want to change this and write a new story. Yeah.
Yeah, yep. And one of the things too, when you were talking about like a lot of the elites and people in power and everything worshiping it, like being Satanists and stuff, which people may hear and be like, oh, that's so extreme. You're so extreme. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, what a conspiracy theory. It's like, wait. You know that there are a lot of people who believe in and worship God, whether you agree or not. Why wouldn't you think
Yeah.
that people worship the opposite or other things? Like, I'm sorry, what are you talking about? If people can worship God, why wouldn't they also, other people, be
Right.
worshiping
Well, people have
the devil,
throughout all of
right?
history. And it's nothing new. Like this isn't new. I
Yeah,
think that again, people just want to stay in their own little bubble and not really know because it's a lot to handle and it's a lot to just even wake up to what's been going on in the world, especially these last 4 years. So, yeah.
it's wild. Okay. Oh my God. I'm like, we could keep going down like these what's going on behind the scenes sort of thing. I, for one, am so curious to see I feel like there's like a big shift coming with 2025 and everything. I'm so curious to see how the next handful of years unfolds and everything like that. I feel like so many people the last several months have been waking up and just with like more bizarre things happening in the world, whether it's like all the wars going on or the recent election, like just so much wild stuff has been happening. And I think a lot of people have woken up as a result. And I think that there is, I think there's like, I
Yeah,
feel hopeful
right.
and Also so
Same.
curious
You know,
to see
I don't believe that
what's
anyone's
going to
here to save
happen.
us. I don't believe Donald Trump is here to save us either. I think he's a very flawed
I
man in
agree.
many ways. And at the same time,
I
you
agree.
know, who
Yeah.
knows what's going to happen? I think a lot of things are going to change. And I do feel like a collective hope.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, if nothing was going right the last 4 years and there was a lot of despair, I do feel like a resurgence of hope and change. And, you know, that's good because what's been going on has not been good for people, most people anyhow.
Yeah.
So whatever
Yep.
happens, we'll get some change and hopefully
Absolutely.
things will get better.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Well, on that note, I mean, I feel like we could talk about so many other things, but I would love for you to share what you have going on if people want to
Yeah.
join your programs.
Well, if you're listening to this before December 30th, 2024, we would love to have you for Red Hat New Year. It's an event that I'm going to be hosting, a live event, and it's going to be super juicy if you're someone who really wants to make 2025 your year of stepping into your pleasure and igniting your desire, reclaiming your mojo, all that sort of stuff. If you're listening to it after, you can still get the replay. And I also have a 5 days to epic pleasure and passion for ambitious women that you can download for free. It's a free mini course. There's so much packed in that little mini course. People are like, how do you not charge for this? But yes, it is free. So you can go download that too. Yeah, mostly my podcast, The Multi-Orgasmic Millionaire. You can find me on Instagram at tilly.storm.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for coming on and for sharing so many juicy things with us. It's been great to connect with you today, get to know you better. And I know that I'm sure people are going to get so much out of this episode. And I'm really excited to hear the feedback and see the messages that come through for it. So thank you so much.
Hey. Awesome. Thank you for having me.